On June 12, 2025, the monsoon hung heavy over Ahmedabad, draping the city in a thick, grey shroud. The air was thick with humidity, and the constant patter of rain on the airport tarmac set a somber tone for the evening. Travelers hurried through the terminal, umbrellas in hand, as the storm intensified outside. Amidst this downpour, Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, stood ready for its journey to London. The aircraft gleamed under the airport lights, its engines humming with anticipation as ground crews made their final checks. 242 passengers and 18 crew members boarded the plane, some excited for new adventures, others returning home. Luggage was stowed, seatbelts clicked, and the familiar safety announcements played over the intercom. No one suspected that this would be a flight unlike any other. In the cockpit, the pilots methodically completed their pre-flight checks, reviewing every system and procedure. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the fuselage, and the Dreamliner began its taxi to the runway, slicing through puddles reflecting the city lights. With clearance from air traffic control, the aircraft accelerated down the rain-slicked runway. For a few seconds, it was a routine takeoff, wheels leaving the ground, the city falling away beneath, and the plane climbing steadily into the stormy sky. But less than 30 seconds after takeoff, disaster struck. Both engines, almost simultaneously, fell silent. The cockpit was suddenly filled with warning alarms and flashing lights as the pilots struggled to comprehend the impossible. The Dreamliner, now powerless, began a rapid, uncontrolled descent. Passengers gripped their armrests, some crying out in fear, as the cabin filled with panic and confusion. The city lights below grew closer at an alarming speed. In a matter of seconds, the aircraft crashed into a densely populated neighborhood, its fuselage tearing through a medical college dining hall and several nearby buildings. The impact was catastrophic, leaving devastation in its wake. A massive fireball erupted, lighting up the night sky and sending thick black smoke billowing upward. The explosion shattered windows blocks away, and the heat could be felt by those standing hundreds of meters from the site. The sounds of the crash and explosion echoed for miles, a horrifying announcement of catastrophe that jolted the city awake. Sirens began to wail as emergency calls flooded in. First responders rushed to the scene, navigating flooded streets and debris. Firefighters, paramedics, and police officers confronted a landscape of chaos and devastation, working desperately to control the blaze and search for survivors. But the destruction was total. All 260 people on board perished instantly, along with 19 more on the ground, students, staff, and residents caught in the path of disaster. In just 32 seconds, hundreds of lives were lost, families shattered, and a city left in shock and mourning. The scale of the tragedy was almost unimaginable, and grief swept through the community. As dawn broke, investigators began their search for answers. What could have caused such a sudden and total failure? The world would soon learn that this tragedy was not the result of mechanical malfunction, but of a single, baffling human action, one that would haunt the aviation world for years to come. The next day, the grim details emerged. Air India Flight 171, a modern Boeing 787, crashed just after takeoff from Ahmedabad, bound for London. The aircraft was new, well-maintained, and flown by experienced pilots. The crash site, a crowded urban area, complicated rescue efforts and magnified the tragedy. All 260 on board and 19 on the ground died, including children near the medical college. 53 British nationals were among the victims, drawing global attention. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau led the probe, joined by US and manufacturer teams. Their urgent mission: recover the black boxes and uncover how a state-of-the-art jet could fall from the sky so quickly. The investigation's breakthrough came a month later, after weeks of painstaking analysis and countless hours spent poring over every detail of the crash. The team of experts, drawn from multiple agencies, had been working around the clock, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious loss of the aircraft. The preliminary report revealed a shocking truth. Both engines lost power because their fuel supply was deliberately cut off. This revelation sent shockwaves through the aviation community, as it was almost unthinkable that such a critical system could be intentionally disabled during flight. The flight data recorder, or black box, confirmed the investigators' suspicions. It showed a sudden and complete stop in fuel flow to both engines, with no prior warning signs or technical anomalies leading up to the event. Investigators found both fuel control switches in the cutoff position, an action that could not happen by accident. Each switch required two deliberate, separate movements, making it clear that someone had purposefully shut off the fuel. These switches are protected by robust safety locks, designed specifically to prevent accidental activation. The process to disengage them is intentional and unmistakable, requiring conscious effort from the person operating them. The evidence pointed to a deliberate, if inexplicable, action by someone in the cockpit. Investigators were left grappling with the unsettling reality that this was not a mechanical failure, but a human decision. The Dreamliner itself hadn't failed. It had been failed by a human command. The aircraft's advanced systems and engineering were not at fault. Someone had overridden them. The engines didn't malfunction. They were simply turned off, as if someone had flipped a switch and silenced the heart of the aircraft in mid-flight. With this new understanding, the investigation's focus shifted dramatically. No longer searching for a technical fault, investigators turned their attention to the cockpit crew, seeking answers to a far more troubling question. The central question now loomed larger than ever. Who moved the switches, and what could possibly have motivated such a catastrophic act? The cockpit voice recorder provided a chilling glimpse into the final moments. The transcript revealed a brief, critical exchange. The captain, shocked, asked the first officer, "Why did you cut the fuel?" The first officer immediately denied touching the switches, his voice filled with confusion. Both pilots were suddenly facing a crisis they didn't understand. Crew coordination broke down at the worst possible moment. 10 seconds after the engines died, the switches were moved back to run in a desperate attempt to restart. But at such low altitude, there was no time to recover. The engines never relit. The last sounds on the recorder were those of impact. The investigation cleared the aircraft and its engines of fault. The Boeing 787 and its GE engines were operating perfectly until the fuel was cut. No evidence of fire, explosion, or mechanical failure was found. The global aviation industry breathed a sigh of relief. There was no design flaw. No airworthiness directives were issued. The fleet remained in service. Investigators checked for subtle technical issues, but all signs pointed away from hardware. The tragedy was not mechanical, but human. With the machine exonerated, attention turned to the human element. Why would a pilot cut fuel during takeoff? Was it a catastrophic error, a misread checklist, or a misunderstood emergency? The cockpit switches are designed to prevent mistakes, especially by experienced crews. The CVR exchange pointed to a breakdown in crew resource management. Clear communication and cross-checking failed. Modern aviation relies on CRM to prevent such disasters. Investigators now had to reconstruct not just events, but the pilot's mental states. Fatigue, distraction, or cockpit conflict, all were under scrutiny. The search for answers delved deep into training, schedules, and personal histories. For the families of the 279 victims, the preliminary findings brought new pain. The idea that human error, not mechanical failure, caused the crash sharpened their grief. Families demanded full transparency, especially the release of the cockpit voice recording. Pilot associations supported this call, seeking clarity and closure. Compensation processes began, complicated by the findings of pilot action. Aviation experts expressed astonishment. Such an error defied all training and safety systems. The crash was preventable, yet it happened, a fact that deepened the family's anguish. As of July 19, 2025, the investigation continues. The what is clear. The fuel switches were moved to cut off, causing both engines to fail. The why remains elusive. Investigators are analyzing every detail: flight data, cockpit audio, pilot training, and airline procedures. They're searching for any sign of confusion, fatigue, or systemic issues. The pilot's recent history, work schedules, and simulator performance are under review. Was this a failure of individuals or of the system? The hope is that somewhere in the evidence lies the key to understanding the fatal decision. The world now waits with bated breath for the final report from the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. Months of painstaking work, interviews, and technical analysis have led to this moment. Every detail, every second of the flight is being scrutinized by experts determined to uncover the truth. The eyes of the aviation world and the hearts of those affected are fixed on what the investigators will reveal. This report promises to connect the dots between human action and any contributing factors, systemic, procedural, or psychological. Investigators are not just looking for a single error, but for a chain of events and decisions that led to tragedy. They are examining whether existing protocols were followed, if there were lapses in communication, or if deeper issues within the system played a role. The biggest question remains: why were the fuel switches moved at that critical moment? Was it a misinterpretation of procedure, a moment of confusion, or something else entirely? The answer could reshape how pilots are trained and how cockpits are designed. The final report may recommend sweeping changes in training, checklists, or even cockpit design. It could call for new technology, better crew resource management, or more rigorous oversight. Each recommendation will be weighed carefully, knowing that lives depend on these decisions. For the families left behind, these recommendations are the only possible legacy, the hope that future lives will be saved and that no other family will have to endure such loss. Their grief is matched only by their determination to see meaningful change. The crash of Flight 171 is a stark reminder that, even in an age of advanced technology and automation, the human element remains the greatest vulnerability. No system is perfect, and no amount of innovation can fully eliminate the potential for human error. The aircraft did its job, flawlessly, until it was commanded not to. Machines follow orders, but it is people who give them. This tragedy underscores the delicate balance between man and machine in modern aviation. For the families, the questions may never be fully silenced, but the lessons learned must shape the future of aviation safety. Only by facing these hard truths can we hope to prevent another unwritten final chapter.